In 1982, a quantum physicist wrote a book that sounded insane for its time. He said that, without even realizing it, modern civilization was building a machine designed to destroy itself, not through nuclear war, not through some obvious catastrophe, but through one single mistake in how we think, a mistake buried so deep that almost nobody noticed it happening. Wanok. And here's the unsettling part. Read this book today, in 2026, in the middle of escalating climate disasters, a mental health crisis sweeping an entire generation, and a world that feels more polarized and fractured than ever. And it reads less like a 1982 prediction and more like a headline from this morning. The book is called The Turning Point, written by Fritjof Capra. In this video, we're breaking down three things: why the world's biggest crises, which look completely unrelated, are actually symptoms of one single problem, where that problem actually came from, and what Capra believed had to change before it was too late. Stay until the end, because the final section connects this 1982 book to something happening right now that even Capra probably never saw coming. Fritjof Capra wasn't some random author. He was a theoretical physicist, one of the scientists who helped shape our modern understanding of quantum physics in the 20th century. But what made him different is that he didn't stop at the lab door. He noticed something deeply unsettling. The way modern physics had come to understand the universe as a web of relationships, not a collection of separate objects, was in direct contradiction with the way modern society ran its economy, its healthcare, and its social systems. There was a gap between what science had already proven and what civilization still believed. And according to Capra, that gap was quietly burning the world down. Think about it for a second. Deforestation and ecological collapse, economic instability that never seems to fully resolve, a widening gap between the rich and everyone else, rising rates of anxiety and depression across almost every demographic. Ask most people, and they'll tell you these are four completely separate problems. Economists will talk about monetary policy, doctors will talk about brain chemistry, environmentalists will talk about carbon emissions, sociologists will talk about class structures. But Capra challenged all of that with one simple question: why do these crises always show up together, across every country and culture, almost as if they're following the same pattern? The answer, he argued, is not a coincidence. These crises aren't the disease. They're symptoms, the way a fever, a cough, and body aches are all symptoms of the same underlying virus. Today's ecological, economic, social, and mental health crises all trace back to one shared root. And that root is this: we've come to see reality as a collection of separate, disconnected parts, instead of what it actually is, an interconnected web where everything affects everything else. When we treat a forest as nothing more than a source of lumber, instead of as part of the entire global climate system, we wreck the ecology. When we treat economic growth as a number that must climb forever, no matter the cost to people or the planet, we wreck the economy. When we treat the human body as a machine that can be fixed one part at a time, ignoring the mind, the emotions, and the social environment around it, we wreck our health. All of it comes from the same worldview, and that worldview has a name and a very specific origin story. Rewind to the 17th century. Two names permanently reshaped how the Western world understood the universe: René Descartes and Isaac Newton. Descartes gave us the idea that the universe could be understood by breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces, then studying each piece in isolation. This philosophy is called reductionism. If you want to understand something complex, just take it apart. Newton followed with laws of physics so precise, so predictable, that the universe itself started to be imagined as a giant clockwork machine. Every part moving according to rigid rules that could be calculated in advance. No mystery. Everything controllable as long as you knew the formula. This was a massive leap forward for science and technology. But here's what Capra points out: something most people never stop to consider. This clockwork worldview eventually got forced onto fields that were never machines to begin with. Economics started being treated like a machine that had to keep growing forever, regardless of the planet's very real, very finite resources. Medicine started treating the human body as a set of broken parts to be repaired one at a time, ignoring the fact that stress, relationships, mindset, and environment are just as much a part of someone's health. Nature started being treated as a lifeless warehouse of raw materials that existed purely for human use, instead of a living web of life that we ourselves are a part of. And society started being imagined as a collection of individuals competing against each other, rather than a network whose survival actually depends on cooperation. This is what Capra calls the Newtonian Cartesian paradigm. A worldview that was incredibly successful at building technology and industry, but was also completely blind to one crucial truth: that everything in the universe is fundamentally interconnected and can't truly be understood in isolation. The problem is this worldview is so deeply embedded that we don't even recognize it as a worldview anymore. We just treat it as reality itself, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Here's where Capra reveals the biggest irony of all. Physics itself, the very field that gave us Newton's clockwork universe, had already abandoned that idea, decades before any other field caught on. Quantum physics showed that subatomic particles can't be understood as separate, standalone objects. They can only be understood through their relationships and interactions with everything around them. Relativity showed that space, time, matter, and energy aren't separate things at all. They're one interconnected whole. In other words, the most advanced science of the 20th century ended up proving something that ancient wisdom traditions across the world had been quietly saying for thousands of years. Reality is a web of relationships, not a pile of disconnected pieces. But ironically, the way we run our economies, healthcare systems, and societies is still stuck in a 17th century worldview. Science moved forward. Civilization never got the memo. That gap, according to Capra, is the fire quietly consuming the modern world. So, what's the fix? It's not a new piece of technology, it's not a single policy. Capra proposes something much more fundamental: a shift in worldview, a cultural turning point, moving away from mechanistic thinking and toward systemic, ecological thinking. In this new paradigm, we stop seeing the world as a collection of separate objects that can each be controlled individually. Instead, we start seeing it as a living, dynamic web of relationships, an open system, not a closed machine. The consequences are massive. The economy would no longer be measured purely by endless growth, but by long-term balance and sustainability. Health would no longer be defined only by which organ is broken, but by the balance between body, mind, and social environment. Nature would no longer be treated as a warehouse of resources, but as the web of life that humans are part of, not rulers over. And most importantly, society would be driven not by competition and domination alone, but by cooperation, balance, and a genuine sense of interconnection. Capra isn't asking us to abandon science or go back to some romanticized past. He's asking us to grow up, to move from a rigid, fragmenting way of thinking to a flexible, unifying one. And here's the part that hits the hardest. This book was written over 4 decades ago, but look at the world we're living in right now. We're living through an artificial intelligence boom moving faster than our ability to understand its consequences. A genuinely powerful technology that, if handled through that same old mechanistic worldview, risks treating human beings as replaceable components once again, instead of as part of an interconnected web that depends on us all. We're living through social media algorithms that, intentionally or not, fracture people into isolated bubbles that distrust each other. Practically a real-world illustration of a world understood as disconnected fragments instead of one interconnected whole. We're living through a climate crisis that gets more undeniable every single year, while large parts of the world still treat endless economic growth as the only measure of progress. And maybe most striking of all, we're living through a global wave of loneliness and anxiety among young people, the most digitally connected generation in human history. And yet, by many measures, one of the most isolated. If Capra was right, none of this is a set of separate crises. It's one disease, correctly diagnosed over 40 years ago, a disease we still haven't actually cured. The question isn't whether Capra was right anymore. The question is whether civilization can still turn the corner before all these crises start reinforcing each other past the point of no return. Fritjof Capra doesn't end his book on a note of despair. He ends it with cautious hope. He believed the turning point was already happening, slowly, unevenly, but genuinely, in every person and community that started thinking systemically instead of mechanically. And maybe real change was never going to start with government policy or the next big technological breakthrough. Maybe it starts with something much simpler. The way each of us, one by one, stop seeing ourselves as isolated individuals competing against everyone else and start seeing ourselves as part of one larger, living web. If this video changed the way you look at the world, hit that like button and drop a comment. Which crisis happening right now do you think proves Capra was right?